The ending of Jujutsu Kaisen is finally here after 6 years. Let's take a look at the ending and explain it so everybody can understand it better, because honestly, it was kind of rushed, convoluted, a little trash. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. You're watching the channel Dr. Applesauce. My name's Will. It's another beautiful day here in Texas. I hope you guys know that I love you, God loves you, and that there is an awesome plan for your life. After 6 years, Gege Akutami's, honestly, what some people would consider to be a masterpiece of an anime and a manga has come to a close. And we're gonna sit here and we're gonna explain what happens at the ending and kind of explain the ending because it is a little confusing. Like the ending of Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2 was confusing, the ending of the story as a whole is very confusing because it's very rushed and convoluted, and there is a lot going on. Drop me a comment down below, my friends. What did you think about the ending of Jujutsu Kaisen? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Obviously, if you're anime only, well, we're gonna spoil things here, so there is your warning. So after the end of the Shibuya incident arc, we go into the Culling Game, which is essentially what Kenjaku was trying to kick into gear, which is this huge game where you have a bunch of sorcerers, a bunch of newly awakened sorcerers, a bunch of people that were dead or in coma or something like that that have been imbued with cursed spirits and cursed objects. Basically, it's a huge battle royale free-for-all death game that's essentially happening in Japan, and this is what we enter into the final arc of Jujutsu Kaisen. And during this entire arc, basically to sum it up and not getting too much into the weeds, because we're kind of wanting to explain the ending of Jujutsu Kaisen here, right? To sum it all up, it's this huge death game that we see a ton of new characters, we see a bunch of main characters die, right? So Gojo just dead. A bunch of new characters that show up get offed. Fushiguro gets taken over by Sukuna. Looks like he's potentially gonna be dead, right? And we see all of these crazy things happen, and essentially this huge fight and this huge just conglomeration of battles happen to where, long story short, Kenjaku gets killed, everybody gangs up on him and destroys him, Gojo dies, you think Yuta dies, but he actually doesn't die, and you think Kugisaki's dead, but she's actually not dead, and you think Fushiguro is basically dead, but he actually isn't dead, and like, why is nobody talking about what I seem to be like massive plot armor for these three huge characters that we thought were gonna die, but Gojo doesn't get any plot armor, but that's neither here nor there. We get to this long, convoluted, really confusing scene where finally Sukuna's in the final battle, and you see that essentially Yuji is able to defeat Sukuna. We see the theory that the reason Yuji's able to get so powerful so fast is because Sukuna was inside of his spirit for so long, and the residual energy and experiences from Sukuna being inside of Yuji's body and soul makes it to where Yuji can absorb and learn highly complex curse techniques really, really fast. So there's the summary that sets up that basically when Yuji and Sukuna fight, Yuji is able to defeat him and withdraw Sukuna from Fushiguro. So now Fushiguro is back to himself again and saved. And then at the end, Kugisaki shows up to help defeat Sukuna. So there's a little more plot armor where she's saved. And then, Yuta shows up in Gojo's body. You thought he was dead, but no, he's not dead. And then he's able to put his brain back inside his body. So a little more plot armor where he's saved. And long story short, Sukuna's defeated after this huge sequence of battles, and then that's like 5 chapters before the manga ends. We still have 5 chapters, and I'm gonna be honest with you guys. These last 5 chapters, I kinda had to speed read through because this is my personal opinion. Okay, I like Jujutsu Kaisen. I like the story. I love the anime. The manga's great. I really enjoyed all of it, but the last few chapters just felt like a bunch of pointless crap. And I say that with respect. I'm not trying to be rude. It just felt like a bunch of junk trying to tie up a bow that was very confusing, and it was all a little bit pointless. That's kind of how I felt about things, and a little bit forgettable. Once Sukuna is destroyed, we have all this stuff happening, right? Very confusing. But the final chapter, the final ending of Jujutsu Kaisen kind of takes us back to where we've fast forwarded in time a little bit, where Itadori and Megumi and Kugisaki are a team again, like they originally were at the beginning of the story, right? They're a trio again out doing sorcery work, and they're in a world that's trying to recover from the after effects of the Culling Game, where there's cursed energy everywhere, and there's, you know, sorcerers and fledgling sorcerers running around all over the place doing who knows what. And so it kind of starts in with them on a mission where basically they're saving this couple from a cursed user, and it's showing a little bit of that, showing that they're all back together and a little bit more experienced as sorcerers. Then we get a little bit of a flashback between Yuji and Gojo before the final battle, before Gojo actually dies, where basically Gojo is confiding in Yuji that he is nervous about what's going to happen in the future and the upcoming battles, and that basically his greatest desire is for Yuji and his peers, Gojo's other pupils, to achieve their own level of greatness. This flashback also kind of solidifies for us that Gojo is indeed dead, that he is not coming back, and that he is gone forever. Then we see this really interesting scene in kind of like the afterlife between Sukuna and Mahito that's made possible because of the remnants of Mahito's cursed technique with the soul manipulation, where Sukuna and Mahito are in the afterlife having this conversation. And Sukuna admits that he'd made mistakes, that he was defeated, and that he ultimately would go for redemption again, and hints that like his soul goes north, and going north in this, you know, context means that the soul is going to a place where he could potentially be reincarnated again, as Gojo's soul did. And he was saying that in the future he would just want to potentially have a normal life and not all of this craziness that happened. So we get a nice little bow on Sukuna's story, and then Mahito's just kind of left there crying, saying he's the only, you know, one left that's a cursed child, and he's the only one left that wants to basically perpetuate anarchy. Then it pans back to where Itadori and Megumi and Noburai have just finished that little mission with the couple and the rogue sorcerer, kind of in the aftermath of the Culling Game in Japan. And Megumi asks Itadori, where's the final cursed finger of Sukuna? You know, the one that Yuji made himself when he bit his own finger off when Sukuna was inside of him. And Yuji says that he's thrown it away, but it kind of pans off to where we see that finger of Sukuna, which isn't a threat because Sukuna isn't embodied in it anymore, but it is a cursed object back at the original place where they originally found Sukuna's finger, you know, at the very, very beginning of the story at his high school, protecting it from cursed spirits, kind of bringing everything full circle, and then that's kind of where it ends. Now, a lot of people speculated that Gojo was going to get to come back because we saw Noburai come back from the dead, basically. We saw Megumi come back from essentially being dead. We saw Yuta come back from the dead, basically. So we thought we would get Gojo back from the dead, but we didn't. Now, one thing that Jujutsu Kaisen did really well is nobody was really invulnerable. Like, anybody could die and anybody could roll up at any given time and have the perfect technique to counter whoever it was that was owning the battle at that time. That was something that JJK did really, really, really well. I think JJK on the whole is a fantastic story. The anime is spectacular. The manga is really good. But I have to say, up until the very end, once we got into the nitty-gritty of the Culling Game, things got really confusing, really convoluted. You're getting a ton of information thrown at you so fast. They're talking about cursed technique theory, different cursed techniques, all these things that we really haven't had any groundwork laid in previous, you know, chapters or previous parts of the anime and manga. And so you're getting a lot of stuff that's very confusing, and that, to me, and in my opinion, led to the ending of Jujutsu Kaisen just being really convoluted and confusing. And as somebody that has read thousands of books, I love fantasy, I love fiction, I love manga. I've read thousands of books in my, 32 years that I've been reading actively. I started reading at 5. I've read thousands of books and I love to read. I'm a pretty good judge at being able to tell when it seems like an author doesn't know where they're going and they're trying to figure it out and get there along the way. About halfway through the Culling Game arc, that's exactly how I felt. I felt like Akutami didn't exactly know where he was going. He had a general idea, and he was trying to figure out how to get there along the way. As opposed to when you read a story like Life Reset, which is a lit RPG, which is a great one, you know that the author had the beginning and the ending planned out, and then he started writing it all out. He knew exactly where he was going. So that's a big complaint of mine. I felt like things got convoluted, and the reason why things were so confusing is because potentially Akutami didn't know exactly where he was going. Now, that's not to say it's not great. Jujutsu Kaisen is fantastic. I really, really enjoy it, and I think it'll be one of those ones that stands the test of time. I think it's a fantastic story, But that is one of my biggest complaints about it. Additionally, JJK set such a dark theme that nobody was safe, that anybody could die, and lots of people in fact did die. Lots of beloved characters did die, which isn't something you typically see happening in an incredibly popular mainstream battle shonen. We've seen it in crazy things like Agame Ga Kill and other crazy obscure anime out there like Dead Man Wonderland, but you don't typically see that in your normal mainstream battle shonen anime, but JJK had that in spades. And I think personally there was a missed opportunity here to follow that dark trend and end with a not so happy ending. It would have made the series stand out better and stand out more and be more memorable and unique, in my opinion, as opposed to just giving it the typical shonen bow that a lot of, battle shonen anime get, that the bad guy's defeated, and then we're left with this kind of vanilla wrap-up ending that kind of everything's okay now, and the main guys are, your main three trio are going along doing their thing, and that's basically it. And that's essentially what we got with Jujutsu Kaisen. And I want to say, this isn't my story, this is Akutami's story, and the way he ended it was the way or I guess it could be a she, we don't even really know who Akutami is, right? The way Akutami ended it was the way that they wanted it to end. Therefore, that's the right way for it to end. But these are just my opinions as a huge fan of the series, that there's some things here that I personally would have liked to see go different directions, and some ways that the ending of JJK could have been a little less confusing and a little less convoluted, because let's be honest, it was very confusing and convoluted at the end, and there was multiple chapters near the end that I just read through because I was thinking, why is this in here? Why do we need this? Why do we need this information? Why is this whole entire chapter about this weird, very obscure topic? And it kind of felt like Akutami was just trying to fill in X amount of chapters, which very well may be the case. But that's the ending of Jujutsu Kaisen explained. It's not anything crazy, or it's not anything wild, or really even unique. But reading those last few chapters can be a little confusing, and once we finally get the ending in anime, I'm hoping that they'll do a little bit better job of depicting how things end and cutting out a lot of the noise that we saw at the very end of the manga. Guys, I want to know your opinions. Let me know down in the comments below. Do you agree about the ending of JJK? Do you agree that it was a little confusing? Do you agree with me saying that it could have been better, but hey, it's the way he wanted it to go, so that's the right way? I'd love to know down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. That's free and it helps a whole lot. And you can click that one right there and watch that one next. And like I always say, find somebody to love and serve today. Be the change you want to see in the world. See you next time.